Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Women Like Me. I am Julie Fairhurst, and I appreciate you being here. Today, we're going to be talking to an author who has written in Volume 4. Now, Volume 4 is not out yet, you guys, so if you're looking for it, you won't find it, but it will be out, cross our fingers, in December, and we'll be sure to let everybody know that it's there. So today, we're going to be talking with Michelle Voyageur, and she is the author of Unconditional Love and How I Found It, How I Built My Family. So a little bit about Michelle that I want to share with you is that she lives in northern British Columbia in a city called Prince George. My dad used to live there, and I had a stepsister that lived there, so I'm very familiar with Prince George. She is a mother, and she's also a grandmother, and she has 2 little grandchildren, and she's very excited to have her 3rd grandchild on the way. Should be there coming in January. And the other thing that's really interesting about Michelle is that she's very creative. And not only has she written her story in Women Like Me, but she has written stories for her children. She has written poetry for her friends and her family, and she has an online business, and I've seen it and I've ordered from her. I love it, and her business is called MV Just For You Cards, and she makes all these fabulous cards, so don't hesitate to check it out, guys. So welcome, Michelle. I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm glad to be here.
Good. So why don't we start with you maybe telling me or us, why you wanted to write your story?
I've always wanted to write my story for probably the last 20, 25 years, as I've been telling my story to different friends throughout my life, friends, relatives, just in an everyday conversation. They say, oh, what do you think about this? Or what did that ever happen to you? So in telling my story and some of my background, they're like, wow, that is so cool. Like, can you tell us more? So then it was probably when my children are almost 29, almost 32, and the oldest just turned 36. They have told me for many years, Mom, you have to write your story. Like, you have to get your story out there. So I've always had a very good support system like that. So it kind of, it helped push me over the line and go, yeah, you know what? I am going to write my chapter. I'm going to get my chapter out there and see where that goes. And here we are.
Yes. Oh, well, and I am so pleased that you chose to do it in Women Like Me. It is, I of course have read your entire story, and it's amazing from the beginning to the end. I'm just letting everybody know. So Michelle, maybe you can start by telling us just a little bit about, I love the beginning of your story when you talk about that you were tired of paying that $4 a month. What was that all about?
Don't ask me why, but a feature came up on my phone, and my phone bill, they're asking, do you want your phone to be unlisted? I thought, wow, that way I'm like anonymous. Nobody will be able to find me. So I'm like, sure, I'll do that. And then I was kind of, as a single mom, watching every penny. And then I thought, why wait? It's only $4 in a month, but that $4 could mean, a little bit of gas for my car or what have you. Anyways, I thought, yeah, I'm just going to call them up and say, cancel it, just take it off. And then I won't have to pay the extra. And then it was exactly 2 days after that I got a phone call from a relative that changed my life and continues to change my life.
Okay, you have to tell everybody. This is just an amazing.
Okay, so I tell people I'm adopted, but in actuality, I have always been a permanent foster child in the foster care system. But fortunately for me, unlike so many others, I stayed with the same foster family from right from the hospital, and I'm 60 now. So, and I still have my mom. This is the only mother I've known, so she's my mom. and she plays a big role in my story. But at any rate, I knew that I was Aboriginal. I knew I looked different. My foster parents are white. And anyway, so when I had unlisted or listed my phone number, I didn't realize that there was somebody out there looking for me my whole life. And when I turned 42 and when I had my number relisted is when I got that phone call, and it was from a first cousin who had been asked by my birth father to help her to find me. And because of the community that we're from, it's a very, very small and remote northern community in Alberta called Fort Chipewyan. And of course, at this point, I didn't realize then, but my birth mother's side of the family was also from the same community as my birth father, Fort Chipewyan. So he had heard and they had heard through the grapevine about this daughter that my birth mother had. And my father knew that I was his child. So in the search, they had gotten to Prince George, and then the trail went cold because no, sorry, we'll have no Michelle. I think at that point I was like Jones or Stewart. I can't remember.
That's okay.
At any rate, I think I was using my married last name, which was Jones. And so nothing showed up for me until I had my number relisted. And then when I called the number that was left on my answering machine, it was a girl. Her name she called herself Jessie Ann. And she said, oh, where were you born? When were you born? Do you know who your birth mother is? Oh, okay. And then a big pause. And I thought, did we get disconnected? What's going on? I'm like, hello? She goes, oh my God. She goes, I found you. I said, who found me? Who's looking for me? And that's when she said, your birth father. I said, my what? I just was blah. I just about fell off my chair. I'm like, oh, okay. That's weird. I didn't know he was looking for me. So I was 42. It was August of 2003. And that's when things took a different turn for me. And I became a part of my birth family, which I had never until then known what that felt like.
Wow.
To be a part of a bigger community where I look like a lot of my relatives. We all had a very strong resemblance. The Voyageur family is very distinctive, and I look like my cousins and my aunties, and it was so surreal. I mean, wow. I love my birth family. I mean, my adopted family, as I call them, but I didn't look like any of them. And so then I went there to Fort Chipewyan, and I'm like, I look like everybody. This is amazing. So yeah, that was quite a thing. Yeah.
Wow. And I know your father unfortunately has now passed away.
Yes.
And you did talk a little bit about just the whole community, and in your story you talk about that he was a very respected elder in that community, and and they named a building after him, or?
Yes, it was after his passing. It was the following spring, I believe, or maybe later that year. At any rate, they had been in the process of renovating and getting this older building back up to par. And at that point, they decided to call it the Cluculz Voyageur Conference Center. Oh. So now I have not been back since his funeral. So I have never seen it, but I have seen photos of it. And there have been events held inside the conference center where it's like, oh, that's my dad's building. That's it, So it's wonderful. Quite an honor.
Yeah, no kidding. And I know that unfortunately you didn't have any contact with your mom, your birth mom.
No.
But you did meet your grandmother, right? Your mom's mom?
That was a bonus for me. When I
Yeah.
was in Fort Chipewyan for Christmas of 2003, some of my Voyageur cousins who, because like I said, both of my birth parents' families are from the same community. So they knew of the Stewart side, which was my birth mother's name, which is the name I went by until I was married, which was Michelle Stewart. And so they knew all of the background and the history with that family. So when I, oh, sorry for the sirens. I live right downtown, Prince
Oh,
George.
that's okay.
Anyway,
That's okay.
so it was probably 2 days after Christmas, and a couple of them came up to me and said, "Hey, Michelle, do you want to meet your grandmother?" I said, "My grandmother? What do you mean?" "Well, Grandma Stewart." I said, "You guys know Grandma Stewart? What?" Like I knew of her. Um, I don't know that I'd ever spoken with her before, but I didn't know where she was even living at that point. So I I said, sure, let's do it. It's a day trip. We'll go. So from Fort Chipewyan to Fort Smith, which is in the Northwest Territories, in the wintertime, everything is winter road. So you're going over ice bridges and everything. But
Wow.
so we drove for several hours in the dark, and then we finally got there. And I remember going in to meet her and hearing from relatives that, your mom, your birth mom, that was Grandma Stewart's. She was her favorite.
Oh.
And you look just like her. And I thought, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea. Like, I don't know, should I really go? I mean, what if it upsets her? But I did. I went in and I walked in the room and she was just sitting on her bed, and my cousins had already gone in and said, "Oh, by the way, Grandma, like Miss Stewart, we have your granddaughter. We have June's daughter here with you." And she said, she looked kind of confused, and I walked in the room and I remember her kind of going, and then we made eye contact, and she was just like, I don't know if she knew what to say. I don't know if she was trying not to cry, but I walked over and she just, her eyes did not leave my face the whole time we were there. And my poor grandmother, she was well into her 80s. She had pretty much lost her voice physically and literally because she had a really hard time communicating at this point in her life. So she mostly listened to us talking. And then it wasn't until, like, my cousin said, okay, it's getting late. Like we need to find a place to stay here overnight, and then we'll head back to Chip in the morning. I'm like, oh, okay. So, okay, bye, Grandma. Kind of a quick goodbye. And then I got almost all the way to the front door to go out to the parking lot. And I thought, you know what? No, this is probably the only time I'm going to see my birth grandma. I'm going back in that room. So I didn't even tell my cousins, turn around and walk back into that room. And she was sitting on her bed and she just looked so sad. And I walked up to her and I went to give her a hug. I said, I needed to hug you, Grandma. I have never hugged you. I want to hug you. So I gave her a hug and I told her I loved her. And she was like, oh, I love you too. And when I walked out of that room, it was like all this weight was off my shoulders because I was able to go and do something that I never thought I would ever do. And that I did it because I did love her,
Yeah.
And in that brief time we were together, you could just feel that in the room. And so when I found out she passed away the following spring, I'm just so glad that I did that. And then I went back and I did that and said, I love you.
Oh, that is
So that was wonderful.
Oh, Michelle, that is just so beautiful. It really is. And I bet it just stayed with her, I'm sure. Just for daily while she was still here, I'm sure. I want to switch gears a little bit and maybe just talk a little bit about your childhood, because you didn't have an easy go of it, for sure.
Well, we were raised in a Catholic family. That was part of the deal that was kind of made when I was surrendered at birth at the hospital in Edmonton. is that I had to be placed into a Catholic family. So back in those days, there weren't a lot of Aboriginal families looking to add to their brood because, so I went into a white family. But that never was a factor for me growing up. All my cousins, I was the cousin. That was it. No ifs, ands, or buts, no questions asked. But it was after we moved to Vanderhoof in 1973. So I was not quite 12. And things were going okay. I fit in well with the schools. Started to fall into the wrong crowd, which I'm sure every teenager, when they're trying to explore and see how far they can push their parents' boundaries.
Yes.
And I pushed hard. So, but yeah, then I things went badly, very badly. I was 14, just shy of 15, when I had snuck out of the house. I wasn't supposed to go, but I went to a street dance and downtown Vanderhoof. And it was great. All my friends were there. And instead of me, trying to sneak back home in a decent hour, no, gonna go on, hang out with these people. And I so wish that I had just gone home, hindsight. But I went with a group of people who, I don't know how it happened, but it just happened in front of me, where there was an accident, someone died, and then trying to work through what had just happened in front of me, what I had just been witness to, and then being with a group of friends, one who was supposed to have been my boyfriend, climb into a car, feel safe, feel secure, only to have been gang raped by 6 of them that same morning after the fact of that accident. And I when I think back, that's 45 years ago. And when I think about it, it's like it was last week, the horrible, from the bottom of my gut feeling like, why did this happen to me? But, I pushed forward, and that's part of my story, is that even though when it looks like you're at your wit's end, and they say, oh, when you come to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. It's like there was no more rope left. But I just went forward, and I attribute a lot of that to my mom, my foster mom, who's my only mom, and her strength of love, and always being there for me, that I was able to kind of move forward and not get past it. I will never get past that. That sticks with me all the time. And it became a part of my story for my family, for my children, which when each of my daughters turned 16 and they were feeling their way, and, ooh, how far can we push mom? Whereas I was kind of the cool mom, okay, you guys, you can go out and do your own thing within reason, but call me if you need me. And I was always there for them. But when they each turned 16, I sat them down and said, just so you know, this is what happened to me. And even though one of them was my boyfriend, and I knew some of them vaguely, some of them a little bit better, that didn't matter. In the heat of the moment, their hormones took over, and that was it. It was, sorry, sad this is happening to you, Michelle, but it's going to happen. And I said, you have to be wary. You have to be careful. I'm not saying you have to have your guard up all the time, but just be aware of your surroundings and who you're with. And do you feel safe, and are you comfortable? So, yeah. But yeah.
And
go ahead.
Back then when it happened too, like if I remember from your story, there was no consequences to these boys.
None at all. The police were called to the house the day after this happened, or well, actually, it would have been that same evening. So this happened probably at like 6, 7 in the morning on a Sunday. By Sunday evening, they were at my house talking with me and my parents. And then I was in another room and they started talking to my parents and they were, oh, your daughter's 14. Oh, this is awful. Oh, we have to figure this out. Like, we have to get her out here. We have to get her the names of these boys. I walked out into the kitchen, sat down at the table. They all kind of went, oh, okay, well. It's like they didn't know what to do next. Here I come and sit down, and they're expecting some, prim and proper little white girl. And then I come and sit at the table, and they're like, oh. And so the interview that I recall took all of 5 minutes, and then they looked at my parents and they said, yeah, she had relations with the one. She was with this one fellow. Oh, her name's going to be dragged through the mud. Why put you all through that? So we'll just leave it there. And that was that. That was it. That was never, ever anything done. So it was at that point when I was not very aware of prejudice at that point in my life. And then it was after that I started to see cracks in the whole system. And I knew that I had fallen through one of them because it didn't matter. It didn't matter that I was, getting a good education, that I had a good family. It didn't matter because of who I was, so that's my heritage. Yeah.
Wow.
It had beat me down without me even trying to do it. So, yeah.
Wow. And you even said that you had to, because of the accident that you saw, you had to actually go to court for that, right? Like as a witness?
Yes.
And then those boys were there?
What happened was the inquest was called for September of that year, which was 1976, I believe. And being a small community, the inquest was held at the small gymnasium of our high school. The witness room was just a classroom. And so they had all the witnesses kind of just jammed in there. And because nobody knew what had happened after the accident, well, of course, I get jammed in that same room with all these idiots that were there that night that had raped me. So, and of course, you can't have your mom there holding your hand. You're in there. You've seen somebody die. You get to sit in this room. And that's how it is. And that's how it was. And all I remember is just sitting there, please, 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 call my name, just get me out of here. Only to be sort of thrust in front of this crowd of hundreds. It seemed like more than that. But I was always shy. I was scared to death. I was alone. And then I had to deal with these people. So I just wanted to say my piece and get out of there. And as soon as I did, I remember walking out of the school, looking at my arms going, what is wrong? And I was covered in hives. I've never had hives. And then I just burst into tears. And I was just like, I just wanted to fall on the ground and just kind of, let it all go. And that was almost as bad.
What an experience, like that whole experience, and then having to deal with them in that type of environment as well. Like it's just I can't even imagine. And here you are, like you're a beautiful
15.
person, and
I was just 15.
I know, but today you're this beautiful person who has raised beautiful daughters and grandchildren and you, the love of your just like everything. And then, but to know that because Michelle, I just don't know that everybody would come out okay, unless, did you kind of go through a dark time and then sort of, or you just?
Well, to me, I just sort of went day to day. And for the first few years after I graduated high school, I went to college. I came into Prince George, went to college. And then I decided to seek out counseling for myself. because I felt like that was never dealt with.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I don't know why my parents didn't put me into any kind of counseling after that. Probably because there was nothing available in Vander back then.
I
So
think in that time frame, it just wasn't, things were just, in my opinion, and things were just like, okay, that happened, let's move on. Like whatever that situation was. I don't think there was much, like you say, much in the way of counseling and that kind of help.
No, but in talking with a counselor, finding out the after behavior of a victim, and I realized I was displaying the majority of them. The alcoholism, the promiscuity, they're just not caring. And then it got to be all too much. And I thought, this is not the life I want. I mean, I didn't have children at that time, but I had nieces and nephews. And I thought, I don't want them to say, oh, yeah, that drunk one down the road, that's my auntie. Yeah. I thought, no, I don't want to be that person. So when I had my daughter, when I was 23, almost 24, I thought this is that bit of let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? Grounding that I needed to move forward with my life, and for me to want to change how I was and what I could have gone and been to what I decided to do and be now, which is to not drink, to not party, to not, to want to be in a single relationship with one person. And that took a fair few years to get to that point. But once I got to that point, I thought, this is where I am meant to be. And that's,
I think that the word that sort of jumped out at me when you were just talking was, I decided. And I think that's what's so, in just my own experience with people that I know, they've all had, we've all had something, some much worse than others, but you've taken responsibility for your life. And I think you decided that that's not what I want, regardless of what's happened to me. I want something better for me, for my family. And then you made the decision. And I think that that's where a lot of people, they're in that blame, they're, and not saying they don't have, the right to feel that. I mean, it's terrible, but it's not going to do any good, to blame, and because, living in blame, and
it doesn't get you anywhere.
No.
Nowhere.
So
I always joke.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was going to say, I always joke that that I don't have PMS, and people go, what do you mean? I said, I don't have poor me syndrome.
No.
This is me moving forward from that. And I'm not going to put my happiness on someone else's shoulders to carry. This is, if I want to be happy in my life, if I want better things for my family in life, these are things that I can do for myself. And that's what I've done. So,
Oh, Michelle, just before we go, I'd love to just get your thoughts on, like, what do you think people can do? Like, I mean, obviously you just said decide and taking responsibility, but what advice would you give to anybody that might be listening or that's going to read your story when it gets released here shortly? Like, what kind of advice would you give people that are having serious troubles or dealing with racism or any of those nasty things that people have to deal with?
For me, I think to find other like-minded people who are going through a similar situation. And in this day and age, there are so many outlets for people to reach for, to go in for either counseling, for meetings. Even if you just go onto YouTube, you might find an inspirational video, who knows? But um, for me, it's always been about family, and the foundation that your family is built from. Mine, I mean, my mother's 83. She'll be 84 in January.
Mhm.
She is my foundation, and she is the one that has kept us all together and kept me grounded. So even when things are going really horrible, and for me, thank God, decades have passed since anything really bad has gone on, with the exception of me losing Kelly, but that was out of everyone's hands.
And that was your
Just
spouse, right?
it's so funny when we were talking with his cousins about this after he had passed. We realized that Kelly and I had been together for over 25 years. And then I thought, wow, I was with the same person for 25 years. Like, wow. Like, and they said, you know, we don't want to call you his girlfriend. You guys weren't married. And then his one cousin went, I know, you guys were soulmates. And I went, oh, I like that. Yes.
Oh,
So
that's
having
beautiful.
found my soulmate, it was, he was the one who kept the story of me meeting my father alive, because anytime we were with a group of people who didn't know of how I came to find, or my father came to find me, Michelle, you got to tell him that story. I started to tell him for you. Here, come over here, come over here. And then he would bring all these people over. I'm like, oh my God, I'm put on the spot.
Oh,
Tell him. And so he would just be sitting in the corner, tears welling up in his eyes, and he'd be like, this is the best part, you guys.
oh, that is
He
beautiful.
was my biggest cheerleader. He was amazing.
Oh,
He was such a good grandpa to our grandchildren, because Kelly and I never had children together, but these were his girls, these were his grandchildren. And yeah, he was a great guy. So
oh. Well, I just am so thankful, Michelle, that I met you and that you wrote your story in Women Like Me, Volume 4, and that you were willing to come on today to talk about your story with me, and that we'll be able to share it with others as well. I'm just, I'm very, very grateful. And I just really wanted to thank you very much. So I appreciate that. And anyone who's listening, Michelle's story is going to be available hopefully December of 2021. And you can read the whole entire thing. There's a lot that we did not touch on. And you'll be able to find out more about this beautiful person, Michelle. So thank you so much, Michelle.
thank you so much for having me. This is an honor, a true honor.
Oh, thank you. Okay, take
Yeah,
care.
you too.